by giving you already up front a kind of personal assessment of how I see, let's say, financial sector developments and the financial landscape in the area. And I tried to be short and put my assessment in the form of 5 aspects on the evaluation of the situation and 5 types of policy conclusions, and I hope we will hear more along those lines in the upcoming session and even beyond that. Now, my 5 evaluation points are the following. First, I think it's very tricky to make general statements on the financial sectors and financial evolutions in the region of the southern and eastern Mediterranean because country circumstances are so diverse, and so even when you look at aggregate figures, it can give a very misleading picture, and we know a lot about that in the euro area ourselves. Second, I think that in many cases the financial sector in the region is overwhelmingly dominated by the banking sector, but I would say that the growth of this sector has been slowing lately, and its contribution to generating economic growth has not been what would have been hoped for, even though the banking sector in the region was relatively less affected by the global financial crisis for some idiosyncratic reasons that we know. Third, I would say that the banking sector in the region, of course, is facing the risk of getting trapped in a kind of vicious circle that we have experienced also in the euro area, where you have, on the one hand, low growth, which is leading to problems in the balance sheets of the banking sector, a high dependence on the government, and because of the low growth, of course, the risk that the fiscal accounts in the country are worsening, and we get into this vicious cycle that we have all experienced also in the euro area sovereign debt crisis. Fourth element is that the low growth in the Mediterranean, South and Eastern Mediterranean, of course, creates a big problem of unemployment, especially youth unemployment, given the demographic situation in the region. And this also hampers financial inclusion and thereby also the further development of the financial sector in the countries. And fifth point of evaluation is that to make a banking sector thrive, one has to have a number of structural policy changes, and actually the set of structural policy changes that are needed for the banking sector are also very useful for the economy at large, let's say, to generate more growth. Now, what are the 5 policy conclusions I draw from that? Well, first, I would say there is an urgent need to improve the framework conditions for the banking sector in the region, and those framework conditions are, on the one hand, legal aspects. We know all that, contract enforcement, property rights and the like, but on the other side also financial market infrastructure developments, what kind of investment products are on offer, what kind of information on credit quality and the like. That's the first set. Second recommendation I would put on the table for further discussion is that it is important to open up the banking sector to competition, and competition both from the domestic side by reducing the role of the government in the financial sector, but also, of course, externally because that provides a channel to increase know-how and to experience from mistakes also that others have made, and that can be avoided by leapfrogging in this way. Third recommendation, that a special focus will have to be put on financing of small and medium-sized enterprises, because typically those are the ones who create a lot of jobs, who create growth, and we see that compared to other regions, they do so less in the South and Eastern Mediterranean than, for instance, in the northern part. Fourth recommendation is that the banking sector can only do well and increase its profitability and reduce its NPLs in a context of macroeconomic stability and growth, and we will turn to that obviously in later sessions. And finally, I think there is a need also to widen the savings pool and the investment opportunities in the region. And this will require, as I mentioned earlier, more financial inclusion on the one hand, possibly also a more regional approach on the other hand. And interestingly enough, if one look at the potential that Islamic finances provides, I think it could fit in both those sides, both the regional and the financial inclusion side. But let me stop here because I've